Hey guys, we're back here at Red Rock Racing Sportsbook. It's Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered by STN Sports. First, we're going to dive into a little college football, and it was a great week last week. There were some great games. I mean, with this new alignment now to get number 2 and number 3, Oregon and Ohio State, or Ohio State and Oregon, I should say, to play each other so early in the season, and it was an epic game. I mean, it came down basically to the last possession. Really entertaining game, and there's some really good games this week as well.
Yeah, and it was great to see the Ohio State-Oregon matchup kind of live up to the hype and be a great game. Obviously, it was good for Oregon from the standpoint of the books. Oregon knocking off Ohio State. A lot of the wagers were on Ohio State because the game earlier in the afternoon, the Red River shootout between Texas and Oklahoma ended up being a real dud, kind of a stinker, and it was great for the bettors.
Great for you guys,
who were betting on Texas as they really dominated Oklahoma, as Michael Hawkins, the Oklahoma quarterback, really looked overwhelmed in that game, and the Texas defense, as well as their offense, just kind of dominated that matchup.
Yep, so let's dive into a couple of good games this weekend that kind of highlight the slate a little bit. Let's start with Alabama and Tennessee. You got, what we think is a really good matchup, number 7 against number 11. Bama, a very small favorite in this game. Interesting matchup, too. I mean, you look at some of the struggles Bama's had, even after that big win, not really kind of blowing teams out after that. And then you look at Tennessee, who, same thing, some struggles on the field.
Yeah, these two teams are actually really mirroring each other this year. Number 1, Alabama has dominated this matchup, 9-1 in the last 10 years in this matchup. The only win coming as a 52-49 win for Tennessee in 2022. But since knocking off Georgia, Alabama went and then lost to Vandy as a 23-point favorite, and then they won by 2 over South Carolina as a 21-point favorite. So big win, monster upset, struggled then to beat South Carolina. Tennessee, you could say, had the same thing. Big win over Oklahoma, go on the road as a 14-point favorite, lose to Arkansas, and then win last week as a 6-point favorite, or a 14-point favorite, but a 6-point win over Florida. So big loss, or big win, big loss, struggle to beat your next opponent, and now you have, a dreaded rivalry.
It's pretty early, though, in the season for one of these teams is going to lose to have their second loss already.
Yeah, and obviously with the 12-team playoff format, you're not out of it. The one thing big for me in both of these games is obviously Milroe and we'll call him Nico because I can't pronounce the last name. But two quarterbacks that were really on the top of that Heisman Trophy lift, that were playing so well through the first 3-4 games of the season, and then have kind of had that loss and then that struggle. So these two guys looking to get back at it.
But a big game here changes that a lot.
Doesn't knock anybody out of the 12-team playoff, but this is going to be a big game to really separate, am I in the playoff or am I not in the playoff?
Well, it doesn't knock you out, but a loss here with still half the college season to go, and one of these teams is going to have 2 losses. It means they can't afford another one. They can't stub their toe again. So this is a big game for both these teams. Jay kind of touched on a little of the stats here. I'll add to that. So the total's gone over in 5 of Alabama's last 5 games on the road. Total here is 56.5. Alabama 16-1 straight up in their last 17 games playing Tennessee. Again, very small favorite in this game. Tennessee 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games at home, and Tennessee 7-1 straight up in their last 8 games at home. So some trends that kind of favor both teams, and the over here, again, very small favorite in Alabama. Next game we're going to look at here, Michigan and Illinois. Kind of an interesting matchup here, too. Michigan comes in 4-2, Illinois 5-1. Michigan here, too, a very small road favorite, total 44.5.
Yeah, and Michigan comes off the loss to Washington. This has been a series, strangely enough, that doesn't get played a lot. Michigan and Illinois don't play each other every year. Only 4 times since 2012. Michigan has won 6 straight going all the way back to 2010. Since 2012, though, Michigan 4-0, and the spreads in those games
were much bigger.
17, 24, 24, and 39.5. So for this game to be, that pick'em type game, very, very, very interesting. The one thing that you look at this game is really the struggles at the quarterback position for the Michigan Wolverines. We saw Davis Warren be the quarterback. He gets benched. They go to Alex Orji, him in the middle of the game last week against Washington. They then switch to Jack Tuttle. Jack Tuttle, you might probably remember his name, strangely enough, transfer from Utah, where we know we're going to see potentially an 8th year from a Utah quarterback. But Jack Tuttle's 25 years old. He's in his 7th year of college football, so he'll be taking over for the Wolverines. But that's been their big struggles at the quarterback position, whereas Illinois, they don't have a quarterback problem. Luke Altmaier has absolutely been fantastic this year. They blew the big lead to Purdue last week, let Purdue leak back into the game, but he was able to get them the win. This year, Altmaier, 14 TDs to 1 interception versus last year, he was 13 TDs to 10 interceptions. So if Altmaier can control the ball, not turn the ball over, it puts Illinois in a really, really good spot. And again, this is a matchup. Brett Bielema, the head coach of Illinois, has said, you don't prepare for Michigan in a week. You don't prepare for Ohio State in a week. You prepare for Michigan 365 days a year. So I think this is a game that Illinois has really been looking for and looking to kind of leapfrog their program.
Well, this is another game, though, too, that with Michigan already with 2 losses and Illinois with a loss, that neither team really can afford a loss. So these games that we're talking about this week with the realignment and the way that we're seeing a lot of these teams play early in the season, it becomes big games, especially when you have that loss.
And Michigan having to travel all the way back from Washington.
Right.
Again, in the Big Ten, obviously the stretched out Big Ten travel, I think, is going to be a little bit more interesting with these teams having to go to these West Coast games.
Some quick betting trends in this one, too. You kind of touched on it a little bit, Jay. Michigan 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games when playing Illinois. Michigan 13-1 straight up in their last 14 games on the road. However, Illinois 5-1 straight up in their last 6 games at home, and 5-1 straight up in their last 6 games, period. So some betting trends kind of for both teams to look at here. Again, Michigan a very small road favorite. And now a game that you could call, kind of the preview of what could be the college championship game. Texas and Georgia. Texas undefeated, number 1 in the country, playing against Georgia. This is a game that we all were waiting to see all season.
Well, we've just every week now we've had this game of the year, whether it's Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon,
right.
and now we get this one. And again, I think bettors are seeing this betting pattern of Texas just absolutely destroy their opponents,
right.
And we saw Georgia,
struggled,
obviously with the loss to Alabama, and then the struggles in the last game. But Texas obviously 6-0, 5-1 against the spread. The only game they didn't cover, they think they were a 37.5 point favorite over Mississippi State. Didn't cover that game. My big question here is who has Texas played, and what are we expecting from Texas in this game? Just going to rattle off very quickly. Texas has beaten Colorado State, Michigan, UTSA.
Michigan in the big house.
Texas San Antonio, UL Monroe, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. So we saw Michigan, now a 2-loss team. Oklahoma, we saw Michael Hawkins play last week, a backup quarterback. Was really no threat to that defense at all. I'm actually questioning why Oklahoma didn't switch mid-game back to Jackson Arnold. Have to question what.
I think we're all questioning
the decision was in that Oklahoma game to sit there with a quarterback that clearly was overwhelmed and gave Oklahoma no chance to move the football. Texas has got to really be feeling really good about themselves. They win the Red River Shootout, and they're sitting there at 6-0, number 1 in the country. They've got a Georgia team that is now chasing after the loss to Alabama. After they lost to Alabama, they came back and really struggled against Kentucky. Or before the game against Alabama, they had the 1-point win over Kentucky. They were a 33-point favorite over Mississippi State, where they only get the 10-point win. But something about this game tells me we're going to see the college football state rankings.
They're all going to have one loss.
Tighten up. Right. And Georgia doesn't get that second loss, doesn't put the SEC with that second loss, and we see things tighten up, and they find a way to walk into Texas, and we see the best Carson Beck that we've ever seen, because Texas has struggled, or Georgia has struggled. They're 0-5 against the spread, the Georgia Bulldogs are. So they have not been the Georgia Bulldogs that we're expecting, and I think that maybe these last couple weeks it's look ahead to Texas, look ahead to Texas, look ahead to Texas, and I honestly don't know who the Texas Longhorns are yet. They went a whole quarter last week without scoring against Oklahoma, without even really moving the football against Oklahoma, and then the defense kind of won that game for them. But I think this is a great matchup, but I'd be scared to lay points or to lay a money line with Texas.
It's very small. Now, a certain actor would say, who's a big Texas fan now, all right, and talk about these Texas Longhorns. I mean, they're just balanced on both sides of the ball. It didn't matter when Ewers went out. Arch Manning stepped in and played phenomenal. Don't forget, that was the first game kind of back for Manning, or for Ewers. So, he gets that game under his belt, a tough matchup against Oklahoma, who defensively is good, just really challenged offensively. But here's a couple of stats for this one, too, that you can look at. Georgia, 23-2 straight up in their last 25 games. They're 22-3 straight up in their last 25 road games. Texas 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games at home, and 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games, period. So there are, again, some betting trends that favor both teams here, and we're looking at all these games that we're talking about with these big matchups with potential college playoff implications, all small favorites. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but a really good college slate this week.
Yeah, and we'll throw in there also UNLV at Oregon State. Again, Oregon State hasn't played all that well. Obviously,
tough place to go play, though.
A team without a conference right now, but again, good players, and UNLV sits as a touchdown favorite. That upset possibility. I always talk about those money line upset dogs in college football. And Oregon State, I think this week, again, cheering for UNLV. We want to continue to see them win, but I think upset alert here big time on this tough road trip.
Well, that UNLV game has gone from 6 to 7 points. I mean, think about last week, although they didn't cover against Utah State, they were up, 42-7 at one point. So after kind of emptying the bench, they didn't cover in that game. The back door kind of swung open late, and Utah State was able to run through it. Really quick, though, last man standing, you guys, they continue to drop pretty dramatically. 72 contestants are left in last man standing. So congratulations, you guys, 72 that are left. Again, a really good slate of games this week. We touched on 3 or 4, but there's probably about another 4 or 5 that are really marquee, great games. So look at the college board, check everything out. Again, only 72 left in last man standing. We'll be right back to jump into a little pro football, which I'm not really sure I want to talk about, but we will. We'll see you guys in a second.
Grandma, who you like today? I'm just walking into Durango. State? Grandma, I'm not betting them. No way they win. No, you don't know ball. Grandma, State's getting blown out. No, I will not live bet them. Grandma, there's no way they come back.
It's a pick 6. State pulls off a miracle comeback to win.
Grandma, you were right. I know. I should have bet them on STN Sports. Okay, I'll admit you know ball. I love you too, Grandma. Bye. Download the STN Sports app now.
Hey everybody, we're back at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the sports betting podcast Bookends. Jason, Chucky, this is powered by STN Sports as always, and we're going to talk about pro football. And Jay and I have a favorite team. It's the Chicago Bears, and you guys had a favorite team last week, and it was every team in the NFL that won, because they were all favorites except 2, and that was the Eagles, who didn't cover against the Browns, and the Titans that didn't cover against the Colts. Outside of that, it was a week dominated by favorites, so congratulations. You guys had a phenomenal week. There was kind of long lines here cashing, and a lot of 5-teamers, 6-teamers, 8-teamers, 10-teamer that was hit here. So congratulations, great week for you guys. So we're going to dive into this week's games and start right off the bat with the Thursday night game, where we've seen the actual favorite flip. In this game, you've got Denver traveling to play the Saints. Sean Payton back in the Big Easy against a team that he won a Super Bowl with. Saints opened up a small favorite. It has now gone almost to a full field goal in favor of Denver. Product of really how beat up the Saints are. Shaheed, Olave, Kamara, all beat up. Probably won't have either one of their 2 big guns at wide receiver, especially with the short work week. And now we're looking at Denver, whose offense is a bit challenged, but against the New Orleans team with Spencer Rattler, too, a rookie quarterback and really no receivers in this game.
Yeah, really, you said it all there. I mean, the reason for the line flip is the Saints are so banged up. We've got a rookie quarterback going. Maybe they can stand up and find a way to play with this Denver team, who, again, had looked good on the road with big wins in Tampa and New York, and then kind of came home to a Charger team
they're
coming off their bye week
challenged
that weren't able to get things going. So I think that they've got to be able to run the football. They've got to find a way to get Williams going. If they can't get him going, the Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix connection is there. The Saints have normally been able to stand up on defense, but again, with so many injuries and their offense kind of leaving them short possessions, Tampa was able to really put up some monster numbers on them last week.
Rattler didn't play bad in that game, but again, we've talked about it going from the start of the season, the rookie quarterbacks and how challenging it is. You've started to see Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and even as Jay alluded to, Bo Nix, play a little bit better as the season's gone on. But you ask a lot from a rookie quarterback. We're not talking about a number 1 overall pick or the number 2 overall pick or a first-round pick. Rattler went in the 5th round. So I don't think he was expected to be the guy this early. The injury to Carr kind of forced that. So we'll see. They're 2-4 right now. They trail Tampa and Atlanta, who are both 4-2. So kind of a big game for the Saints in this matchup.
Two rookie quarterbacks, short week Thursday night. I would say to look at the under here.
You heard it here. He gave you guys a play. All right, we're going to go to Sunday now. Sunday morning, get up early with Station Casinos and STN Sports because our kiosk over the counter and our mobile app will be open for the Patriots and Jags, both teams with one win playing in London. But these Jags got blown out last week by the Bears. Patriots and another rookie quarterback in Drake May, who I thought had some really good moments in that game. It was a tough matchup, though, against the Texans defense. But kind of an interesting matchup to see. What do the Jags have, if anything, left? And a loss here, which is almost, a quasi-home game. Every year they've played in London against a Patriot team with a rookie quarterback and a lot of young players. There might be some people missing that plane ride flying home to the States.
Well, number one, go look at the Patriots injury list. I think I counted 16 players listed on the injured list for the Patriots, and that's never a good sign, let alone with the talent level that the Patriots have. But when you have that cluster injuries where you're missing so many players on one side of the football or the other side of the football, very, very tough, let alone traveling back overseas to London to face a Jaguar team that's staying in London and playing 2 consecutive games in London. Now, we did question, where this Jacksonville Jaguar team is at.
They even made a trade yesterday, so they traded Ray Robertson, who's kind of an integral part on their defense. So they already have started maybe that, hey, if we continue to lose, there's going to be guys available, and they started that in London already.
Yeah, they were a team that was expected to compete in the AFC South to be able to potentially win that division, and then they've just been bad, and when they've been bad, they've been really bad in kind of the 2 blowout losses to both the Bills and then the Bears last week. And you really have to wonder what's going on with Trevor Lawrence. He's had some good games, but they're just missing a lot of open receivers, a lot of drop balls.
And they're dropping the balls.
But again, this is a good matchup to get healthy. New England Patriots can do that for a lot of teams that get healthy. Was really kind of shocked that Peterson wasn't let go this week by the Jaguars with the performance that they put in against the Bears. Maybe they give him one more week to get a healthy win over a bad Patriot team in the back-to-back weeks in London. But that's why you see this point spread in that kind of, getting close to a touchdown, 5-6 range is because the Patriots are so beat up.
Well, I think when you look at Jacksonville, too, and you question Trevor Lawrence, I know there was a lot of drops, but from a skill position standpoint, I know Etienne's somewhat banged up, but Bigsby really has kind of filled that role and been great. And you look at their skill position players, Evan Ingram at tight ends back, their wide receivers. I mean, rookie Brian Thomas, who you can make a case has been as good as Harrison Neighbors or Odunze so far, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis. They've got some talent there. It just hasn't worked out for this team. So for some reason, if they stub their toe here, I think there's going to be massive changes with the Jags coming back to the States.
Watching we got to watch the Jets overseas 2 weeks ago. Our Bears were playing this week. Watching the Patriots and the Jaguars this week's going to be tough at 6:30 in the morning. We're going to need
You can still get up early, though,
need some extra caffeine in my coffee
we'll be open
to get through this one.
Excuse me, choked me up a bit. Over the counter, STN Sports, kiosk will all be open. A couple of interesting betting trends for this one. So New England has kind of dominated Jacksonville of late. A 9-1 straight up in their last 10 games when playing Jacksonville. 4-2 against the number. New England, their last 6 games on the road. And you look at Jacksonville, 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games. So really a lot of struggles and a lot of things kind of point maybe to this Patriot team getting a cover and maybe playing well against the Jacksonville team that's really trending the wrong way. Look at some of the other games on Sunday. One of the best games to me is the NFC North. That entire division is above 500. Toughest division in all of football right now. And you've got the Lions playing the Vikings in Minnesota. Vikings come off their bye week. They're 5-0. Lions are 4-1. Big loss here, though, for the Lions is Aiden Hutchinson. Out for the year. Maybe if they get to the Super Bowl, he could come back. But that is just a catastrophic loss. Heart and soul of that defense. Vikings opened up 1. The game has ticked up to 2 right now. We don't know for sure, but there is a chance that Minnesota gets TJ Hawkinson back in this game, which would be another weapon, but really a great matchup, arguably the marquee matchup of the week in the NFC North.
Yeah, 2 teams that have made the betting public a lot of money as the Vikings 5-0 against the spread, Detroit 4-1 against the spread. Obviously the big win in Dallas last week for Detroit where they embarrassed the Dallas Cowboys. And they look like they're having a lot of fun playing football between 2 weeks ago, the Amon St. Brown pass to Goff.
The trickeration.
The flip, the laterals. They were called for a penalty on that flip to Sewell. But the Detroit Lions look like they're having a lot of fun, and they looked like they were playing that game at Dallas with a monster chip on their shoulder, as they didn't rest or relax after kind of really running it up on the Cowboys. Continue to throw the football, continue to see the two-headed monster in Gibbs and Montgomery. And again, this is what we expected out of this Lions
and St.
team.
Brown. I mean, and Laporta. They've got some great skill position players.
They've got incredible offense. The defense is improving. We saw them kind of against Seattle allow some yards in the secondary, but again, dominated Arizona, dominated Dallas. And for me, I think the worst thing in the world happened to a 5-0 Vikings team that was rolling, and that they hit their bye week. And I hate when a team's winning, and you have all the momentum, and then you hit your bye week. So for me, this is a look for Detroit. And I know we've taken some early money on Minnesota, and they've done so well on both sides of the football. But I hate the fact that they hit their bye week against this Detroit team that really seems to be finding a groove in the way they're playing football.
I agree with you. I know we both talk about that a lot, but I think in Minnesota's case, Addison had just come back. You get a chance maybe to get Hawkinson back. Offensive line, they had some guys banged up there too. They get a chance to get healthy. So usually you're right. I think when you're playing so well, but in their case, they were a little banged up. So it gives guys an opportunity to maybe get healthy and get back. Here's some interesting betting trends for this one, guys. Detroit 5-0 against the number in the last 5 games when playing Minnesota. Detroit's 5-0 against the number in their last 5 road games. Minnesota's 5-0 against the number in their last 5 games, and 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games. So here you've got betting trends that favor both. We've seen this number jump from 1 to 2, maybe a little bit higher out there right now in the industry. But this is a really good game, arguably kind of one of the 2 marquee matchups of the week. Another great game. You've got an AFC team against an NFC team, 2 teams that are playing really, really well right now. Pack are 4-2, Texans 5-1. Texans travel to play Green Bay. Pack a small favorite here. Both these teams look to be playing late into the season. Both are playing great. Both are getting healthy at the right time. Jordan Love looked just spectacular against Arizona. C.J. Stroud, I mean, we know how good that offense is even without Nico Collins. So big matchup between these 2 teams.
Yeah, and I thought the big thing for the Texans is getting Joe Mixon back and a healthy running back. They have Pierce, they had Cam Akers. When Joe Mixon was out of the offense, it just didn't seem like they had what they needed from that running back position. And obviously, you talked about knowing the dangerous weapons that they have all over the field. But with Mixon back, we saw Tank Dell sprinkled in. We saw actually Dalton Schultz used a little bit more. So Stroud knows how to use those weapons to go along with Diggs. The big thing for me here has been the Texans defense. When we look at over-unders, we think about the Houston Texans as a high-flying, high-scoring offense that's gonna be running things up. In their games, they're 2-4 from a standpoint of 2 overs to 4 unders. So that defense has really been able to play well, play competitive, and they're going to need to do that in this matchup with this Jordan Love, throw the football around, finding Josh Jacobs. Love just seems to find these receivers. You don't know which ones it's going to be week to week, whether it's Wicks or Reed or Watson. He's got all these guys to go to, so many different weapons. So it looks like it should be a high-scoring matchup with these players that are around it. And Green Bay is 3-1 to the overs. So kind of a conflicting. Packers have been an over team. Texans have been an under team. Tough matchup, obviously, with these 2 teams. But this is one of the better games of the week.
Here's some betting trends I'll give you guys for this matchup as well. Houston 5-1 straight up in their last 6 games. As Jay mentioned, the total has gone under in 4 of Houston's last 5 games when playing Green Bay as well. Green Bay is 4-1 straight up in their last 5 games when playing Houston. And again, these 2 teams playing each other for the last 5 games has gone under, so something to look at. We talked about that earlier NFC North matchup as a marquee game. You get a Super Bowl rematch here. Chiefs, 49ers, only undefeated team, Kansas City Chiefs. They've got injuries. Didn't matter if it was Brown, Pacheco, Rice. They find a way. They're 5-0, coming back from their bye. We know how good Andy Reid is coming back from his bye. I don't have to say anything more. It's just phenomenal against a Niner team that at 3-3 is getting a little bit healthier. They don't have Christian McCaffrey, but I'd say they're a little bit of a disappointment right now at 3-3.
Yeah, well, I'll jump into the Niners first. You talk about 3-3. Their 3 wins are over the Jets, the Patriots, and Seattle. Their 3 losses, Arizona, the Rams, and Minnesota. So those 3 wins don't jump off the page at you as playing fantastic, great wins. And obviously we know there's no Christian McCaffrey there. We saw Mason leave the game last week, and again, Guerrero jumps in, and they're running the football there. Anytime you can go to Samuel, he's fantastic out of the backfield. They haven't really had those big games.
Kittle had a nice game.
Kittle's been a red zone guy getting those touchdowns, and we know Jennings can be there as well. They've been an over team, playing a lot more points than we normally see out of that Niner team. And you talk about it being the Super Bowl rematch where we saw a 25-22 win for the Chiefs. Remember, 9 of those points were scored in the overtime. So these teams like to, Super Bowl was a low matchup, despite the fact that all those weapons were healthy. All the weapons that the Chiefs had were healthy. So when you look at these teams, not playing too long ago, they know what each other wants to do, and it was a low-scoring matchup. The other thing, you brought it up, and I'm going to reiterate it for you that don't know. Andy Reid off of a bye week. Andy Reid with the Eagles, 13-1 off of a bye week. Andy Reid with the Chiefs, 8-3 off of a bye week. So that's a total.
In February, the Super Bowl was off of a bye week, and we know who won.
21-4 off of a bye week. Best record from a head coach standpoint is what Andy Reid is, and he is your head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs heading into this matchup.
So a few betting trends for this one, too, guys, to look at. Kansas City, 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games. We talked about they're undefeated. They're 5-0 straight up in their last 5 road games. San Francisco, 5-1 straight up in their last 6 games when playing at home against Kansas City. And they're 17-4 straight up in their last 21 home games. This game is basically a pick'em game. You're looking at San Francisco, a very small favorite in this game. Kind of interesting to see what the line ultimately does, but some betting trends that kind of favor both teams.
Yeah, and it's also a get the records right-sized within the National Football League. A win here puts San Francisco 4-3, still kind of underwhelming of where we expected them to be. Although somebody did come out and tell you that the San Francisco 49ers had no sense of urgency heading into this season. So to see them at 3-3 is not something
somebody told me
surprising to see at this point in time. The Chiefs at 5-0 is somewhat surprising and doing well against the spread. Really had a big cover the last week against the Saints, but they played some really, really tight ball games. And obviously Patrick Mahomes performed his wizardry in the fourth quarter. So we'll see if the wizard at work again in this fourth quarter here. But if I was just looking at a pure right sizing of the records, I'll take the Niners in this matchup.
Yeah, I think they have to win. I mean, a loss here, they go to 3-4. I mean, it's you keep the door open for everybody else, I think, in the NFC North if that's the case. Excuse me. We're going to jump to Sunday Night Football now, and yes, the Jets are on primetime again. Not sure why, but they are. 2-4. They made the trade. They can't stop the run, but they didn't sign Hassan Reddick. They didn't go out and get a run stuffer. They signed a wide receiver. They traded for a wide receiver, and that's Davante Adams. So Aaron Rodgers gets his best buddy. These two are a dynamic combination. But to me, wide receiver wasn't the issue. I mean, he has Alan Lazard, who's been great. He has Breece Hall out of the backfield that's been good. He's got Conklin at tight end that's been good. He's starting to get a little bit more of a rapport with Garrett Wilson. To me, it was the defense. They just can't stop the run and get off the field. They play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 4-2. Really tough place to play. Justin Fields has played good this year, but I don't think great. I think kind of the same issues that he had with the Bears are starting to resurface right now. And I'm not sure if Mike Tomlin is trying to light a fire under Justin Fields or he's really looking at a quarterback change. But Russell Wilson got into last week's game. He's healthy, and there's a chance that he may start or you may see him in this game. Similar to the Thursday night game, Steelers opened up the favorite as soon as that trade for Davante Adams went through. And Adams is saying he is playing this week. The Jets are now the favorite.
Yeah, no shock here. After the firing of Saleh, going into the Monday night matchup with the Bills, we expected that kind of play with the chip on your shoulder from the Jets. I thought they were the better team on the field between the penalty calls and just
they should have been wearing yellow. It was nonstop.
The missed field goals or the hitting of the uprights. Jets clearly had a chance to win that matchup. You acquire a player like Davante Adams, who, despite the fact that he has been missing these games for the Raiders, he's still a top 7 receiver in today's National Football League. And now you pair him up with Garrett Wilson, and he'll quickly develop that rapport with Aaron Rodgers. You don't lose that from what they had with the Packers.
For me, though, we kind of talked about it. We watch all the games. We're always watching them, critiquing them, and talking about things. And he seemed to be looking at Lazard a lot more than Garrett Wilson because he had that relationship with him. Now you get Davante Adams in there, and you still have arguably one of the young top guns in the league, young receivers in Garrett Wilson. Where does he kind of, where's he in the pecking order now with Davante Adams? Is there enough balls to go around to keep all these guys happy, or is there problems on that offense? Because Rodgers, to me, doesn't look like the same guy. I know he threw for 296, so he's now gone, I think, 3 years or 4 years without a 300-yard passing game. I know he adds Adams, but how happy is Garrett Wilson going to be if Lazard and Adams are getting the bulk of the targets and he's the odd man out?
I don't think anybody cares about happiness as long as they put up W's, and that's where they're at. They're a losing franchise, a losing football team right now. They've got to find a way to win games. When you watched Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams when they were paired together on the Packers, there wasn't a fourth quarter that scared you that they weren't going to be able to move the football down the field, go get that field goal, or go get that game-winning touchdown. And now they're back together again with a little bit of age. But again, with still some weapons that to go with it. The complementary weapon that Wilson can be and Breece Hall can be, it just leads the defense to have to cover Davante Adams. And it might be great for Garrett Wilson because now Davante Adams may draw the best cornerback and leaves Wilson one-on-one with a second quarterback, or leaves Lazard man-to-man, or leaves Breece Hall out of the backfield with a linebacker covering him. So it causes matchup nightmares all over the field for any opposing secondary. But again, you said it, the problem with the Jets is they just can't stop the run. We saw this Ray Davis have an absolutely fantastic game for the Bills. He's their backup running back with no Cook, and they were able to basically run the football through the Jets. And we saw that in Week 1 when the Niners just ran the football to them. So they've got to be able to answer the call on the defensive side of the football. If they're able to make those stops on defense, then that offense can go do what it wants to do and have a little bit better balance.
Rodgers, although he threw for 296, there wasn't a lot of downfield stuff. A lot of it was kind of underneath in the short passes. So
that's a project of a bad offensive line. So he needs to get rid of that football. But again, a good matchup here for them to go get healthy against the Steelers. The Steelers don't have an offense that should be able to threaten them with it down the field. You talked about Justin Fields' struggles. I didn't think they looked all that good last week against really what is a depleted Las Vegas Raiders team, a team that is playing hard but doesn't have the tools in the shed to be able to play with the upper echelon teams. Not that the Steelers are an upper echelon team, but most teams should be able to go in and beat the Las Vegas Raiders with their current roster.
And like you talked about,
without Davante Adams.
Both these teams a little bit offensively challenged. You're looking at a total of 38, so a really low total on the board. A couple of betting trends. Total's gone under in 5 of the Jets' last 6 games when playing Pittsburgh. The total has, and Pittsburgh is 8-2 straight up in their last 10 games when playing the Jets at home. So we'll see how it works out for these two teams. But Steelers, again, 4-2, playing the same division as the Ravens. I think they've been really a surprise this year. We'll see if it's Justin Fields or Russell Wilson or there's a quarterback change there. Jets will have Davante Adams, it looks like, that night. They make the big trade. Back-to-back weeks on primetime football. We'll see how it works out. We're going to jump to Monday night now. Yay, sportsbooks. Doubleheader. So we got a doubleheader on Monday night. A little bit later start times where our good friend Bert Trencione was happy. He said, I liked a little bit later better. So instead of 4:30 and 5:15, it's 5:15 and 6 o'clock. First game on Monday night, which is a really good matchup. It's Baltimore at Tampa. Both teams are 4-2. Surprisingly, Baker Mayfield, I think he leads the NFC in touchdown passes. He's been great this year. Lamar Jackson with Derrick Henry and getting Zay Flowers in the mix and Mark Andrews in the mix. They were kind of one of the teams that was all in on Davante Adams. It didn't work out, but Bateman and Flowers have really played well right now. But intriguing matchup for the first game on Monday Night Football.
Unless we get another rainstorm down in Tampa this week, look to the over. Ravens 5-1 on overs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 4-2 to the over. The last 3 weeks, the Ravens have scored 30, 41, and 35. The Bucs have scored 51, 30, and 33. So I expect the fireworks here and early in the Monday night game.
Just a little bit is that when these two teams have played, the last 8 times that these two have matched up, 6 of those 8 have gone under. I know it's different teams and it's over the course of the years, and these two teams have been, really overs, as Jay mentioned, but a little history that's gone under between these two.
Not on Monday.
Some interesting betting trends here, guys. Baltimore 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games when playing Tampa. Baltimore 7-1 straight up in their last 8 games on the road. And Tampa 6-2 straight up in its last 8 games at home. Excuse me. The late game on Monday Night Football, the Chargers and the Cardinals. Chargers are a small road favorite here. They've been a surprise, I think, the way they've played so far under Jim Harbaugh. They're 3-2. Cardinals, you don't know which Cardinal team you're going to get. One week you get a really good offense. The next week you don't. They had a number of turnovers last week. Kyler Murray against Justin Herbert. You would think a lot of offense, but that hasn't been the case for these two teams so far this year.
Well, when you count the Cardinals out, when you think the Cardinals are over and done with, that's when they come and play a big game for you, and that's kind of the situation that they are this week. Obviously, they're 2-4 losses against Green Bay, Buffalo, Washington, and Detroit. However, they have those 2 big wins over the Rams and the Niners. And
they really have had a tough schedule, though, when you look at it.
Yeah, the biggest win was obviously going on the road and beating the Niners in a comeback victory. Yeah, tough loss at Buffalo. Obviously, the Green Bay this week. Really, the upsetting one was when they lost at home to Washington, and it was really the kind of Jalen Daniels coming out party when they made all those, I think, 7 consecutive series where they scored on the Cardinals. But yeah, tough loss. Green Bay, Buffalo, and Detroit. Those are 3 losses that are tough for the Cardinals. Yep. And I like the Cardinals this week. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. has been a missing piece of the puzzle. We kind of saw him
might be
early.
Missing this week.
We saw him earlier in the year have a game with a touchdown and then a game with 2 touchdowns, but he really hasn't been a part of that offense. It's the James Conner show, and when Kyler Murray runs the football, it's a good Cardinal team, and then he can find the Dortch and Michael Wilson and McBride, and they've been somewhat getting there, and then they disappear. They've had a bunch of games where they have the first drive, they go score on their first drive, and then they don't do anything the rest of the game. So really, really inconsistent Cardinals team. But because of that, because of their inconsistency, I expect them to be consistently inconsistent and come with a better performance this week because they've been.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, they've been bad.
Right.
So now you're not going to get the bad Cardinals. You're going to get the good Cardinals this week. And I caution you on this Charger team. You said a pleasant surprise from this Chargers team. Listen, the Chargers have beaten Denver, Carolina, and the Raiders. Those are games you're supposed to win in the National Football League.
Yep.
They lost to Kansas City and Pittsburgh. So the Los Angeles Chargers have done nothing extraordinary in any of their football games. They're 3-2. They've beaten 3 bad football teams. They've lost 2 other games. Obviously, Herbert, Dobbins, you still don't really know who their pass catchers are. They haven't really done anything to jump out at you, whether that's Quentin Johnson or Palmer. Nothing really special there. They're a low-scoring team. They want to play low-scoring games. This probably looks like another low-scoring matchup with the Cardinals if Marvin Harrison's not there. We could see a lot of James Conner, but I think, again, this is one of those get-right games for the Cardinals as we sit 2-4, kind of a must-win game for them, or they start to fall out of the picture.
A few betting trends, as you kind of touched on. Total's gone under in 6 of the Chargers' last 7 games. The total has gone over, however, in 9 of Arizona's last 11 games. So kind of conflicting there. Arizona at home is a much better offense than they are on the road. Before we jump into baseball, the baseball playoff, last man standing, guys, do a dramatic drop in pro football as there are 94 contestants left in the pro last man standing. Let's talk a little baseball postseason. Dodgers and Mets tied 1-1. Guardians and Yankees right now. Yankees kind of controlled what they had to by winning both games at home, but 2 kind of intriguing matchups.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's so shocking as we've gone into this, even so much in the NLDS, the ALDS series, and now the championship series, is the questions at the pitching position, and that we don't know who's starting these games. We don't know how long they're going to go.
So early now.
We're seeing bullpen games in a championship series from so many different clubs. The Dodgers in particular, with their injuries to Glasnow and Kershaw, and we really don't know who's starting these games, how long they're going to go. Walker Buehler was I'll say it, atrocious all year long. I had him on my fantasy team, so I had to live through how poor he performed. But he hasn't been good. But yet they've found a ways, and they found a way to get through the Padres, and they found a way to win Game 1, and then they lost the bullpen game in Game 2. But again, now they're needing Walker Buehler in Game 3, and the Mets on the other side have been solid pitching, and we know who their starters are, and they're getting the timely hitting. Francisco Lindor has been absolutely amazing. Vientos, we all know the polar bear Alonso has has had the big hits. They need to get something from the backside of the lineup if they're going to continue to stay here with the Dodgers and what we know Betts and Ohtani can do. Freddie Freeman's status of what his legs, we all see him running the bases or limping the bases, as we'll call it. But again, a very, very interesting series as we move forward, with obviously the Mets able to win Game 2 and got this tied up. And then on the other side, we're seeing this Yankees-Guardians matchup, and as despite the fact that the Yankees are winning these games, they seem close, they seem beatable. Cole and Rodon didn't seem dominant, and if the Guardians can find a way, it feels like there's a way and a path to victory here, as they're just missing, and they've loaded the bases up so many times.
Get
just
that lead
one hit away
with that bullpen. Get that lead in a couple of games going into the 6th inning, and then they're going to be really tough to beat. But we'll see. Right now, I mean, it lines up that we could be seeing a Subway Series.
Well, and the matchups, the props, like, I know that when we get to this point in time in baseball, there's a lot of baseball fans that get turned off because it's just not your team.
Right.
And it's not the team that you cheer for. But again, turning on these games, so many different ways to bet it, so many props, home runs, total bases, pitching props, first 3, first 5, the in-game, the in-play, so many different ways to bet on the app. So again, something to check out. And again, these are, you're questioning who's going to be on the field from a pitching standpoint. And we've been listing so many any pitchers to get these games up and get you guys the ability to bet them. But again, a lot of interesting matchups here and a lot of props offered on the baseball games.
So don't forget, it's not just what we've talked about so far in football and the baseball playoffs. You've got hockey season in full spread right now. You've got the Golden Knights playing. You've got WNBA finals going on. So a lot going on right now. And as we kind of touched on, we know it might not be a marquee matchup, but Sunday morning you've got that game in London, Patriots, Jags, STN Sports, over the counter, the kiosk will all be open, you guys. So while you're having your coffee and enjoying it, log in and you'll have an opportunity to play that big game on Sunday morning.
And NBA tip next week. Yep. So again, we're getting into that back half of October schedule where we've got, baseball playoffs, hockey, basketball, college football, pro football. What an absolutely fantastic time of the year.
And just maybe for Halloween, we might bring back the real Jason,
the Jason and Chucky show.
Yeah. So anyway, good luck with your favorite teams this week. And we'll see you guys next week on the Sports Betting Podcast Bookend. He's Jason. I'm Chucky. We'll see you guys soon.